Let's talk Tanya for the 5th of Tamuz of a leap year. In yesterday's Tanya, we explained the deeper meaning of the fact that we refer to the energy and the qualities and attributes that emerge from God. We describe them as oir, as light. And by the way, before we continue the conversation, I do want to point out what Dr. Rebbe says over here, is that it's not a perfect analogy. There is no such thing as a perfect analogy when we're talking about God. When we're talking about light and its source, so number one, light is a perfect reflection of its source. And number two, arguably, the function of the source of light is to provide light. The function of, you turn on a light, you put light of fire to make light. The purpose of the sun is to provide light over here to this world. Now, neither of these transfer to God. We cannot say that the God's attributes or qualities are a perfect reflection of Him. We also can't say that the function of God is to provide these energies and these qualities. But as imperfect as the analogy might be, nevertheless, it is instructive in the sense that we understand that all of these qualities are the light of God. And moreover, as we discussed in yesterday's Tanya, these are the light of God as they are still within their source. And just like the light, when it's in the source of light, does not have an independent identity, it's just part of its source. The same thing, all of these qualities, attributes, they're all part of God, and they do not create ribui. They do not create any sort of multiplicity within God. We still have God as the achdus hapshuta, as complete unity. But as we concluded yesterday's Tanya with a question, so if all of these energies and all of these attributes are included still within their source, within God, then why do we experience them somehow as being independent of God? In other words, not their godly attributes, but each one has its own independent identity, God's kindness, God's wisdom, etc. And the answer the Alter Rebbe says is, yes, that's our perspective. And this is just one of those cases. We've talked about this a lot over the previous chapters, where we have a different perspective from God. As creations, we don't share God's perspective. From God's perspective, He looks at everything and sees everything as it is subsumed within Himself. We, on the other hand, because we don't see the source, we don't see God, we merely interact with God's attributes. We see them for something on their own, but that's not the reality from God's perspective. Now, we say we interact somehow or are impacted by God's attributes and qualities. What exactly is the nature of that impact? That will be the discussion of tomorrow's Tanya.